Hey everyone, this is Ian Carlin. Welcome to a Mind for Fitness podcast. This is the podcast where real change happens for you if you listen and implement. That is, with always with your doctor's um, approval. Let's just say that what we're sharing here does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. So I am not a doctor, in a medical doctor at least, and I just want to make that clear right up front, as everybody knows. Boy, we're off to an interesting start here. Well, thanks for joining me today on the program where we talk about the issues that really do matter, issues regarding health, issues regarding workouts and diet and exercise and just becoming the best you could possibly be, helping you reach your weight loss goals and maintain those weight loss goals if you have already reached them, because that's important. I want to provide the encouragement and the knowledge and the know-how to just keep you on that right track to optimal health. And today we are going to be talking about choosing your right diet, choosing the diet that is right for you. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit about something that's been around for a long time, but I I just started thinking about it. Actually, I thought about it for a while, but it's been around even longer than what I was thinking about it. That I have been thinking about it. If that makes sense. And that is the Wolverine diet. I have thought about going on the Wolverine diet on a few occasions and mulling that over in my mind, and have wanted to talk about that for a while, and thought I would share some of my insights on the Wolverine diet, and then just kind of digress into um, what diet should you choose? What diet should you be on? What diet is best for you? What are some of my favorite diets that I've tried in the past that are sustainable and that I have, used for my clients and recommended for my clients? And it's just kind of surprising because I don't really have like a diet. Like I don't just go, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. A lot of people think that I just kind of start people out with low carb, and that's for the most part true. That is for the most part true. But I normally get to talk with the person first, and we kind of talk a little bit about the diets that I approve of and that I want people to try. Now, what I normally do is I'll give somebody several options. I'll say, but you got to choose one. You can't do, you can't do the warrior diet on Monday and Tuesday and then do um, alt shift diet on the rest of the week or something like that. You have to choose a diet, but they all kind of follow the same template. And then if they're kind of lost, um, then normally I'll just stick them right on a low carbohydrate diet, because I think that's really important on the front end. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the different kinds of diets that are out there and good diets and what they all have in common, and the theories that they put forth. So we'll talk about some of the ones, at least the ones that I'm familiar with today. But let's get into this Wolverine diet, because if any of you are familiar with the Wolverine diet, as I am, are familiar with the franchise, which I enjoy. I mean, like if there's a guy out there, it's just like who would love to look like, or I'd love to have that dude's body. It is certainly Hugh Jackman, man. I mean, it's just like he's ripped, and he looks good. So it's just like, man, if there's maybe if I do what he does, then I will get the results that he will get. Well, let me first of all just talk about a little bit about what his diet is or was when he started to do for the role of Wolverine, from the original X-Men to Wolverine. If you look at the original X-Men, you look at Wolverine, you'll see that there's a radical difference in his composition, and then whether or not this is a good diet for you. So first off, you can't distinguish from the diet and the workout. Okay. Now, anytime you make an improvement in your life, so you decide to stop eating, uh, donuts for breakfast, and you decide to do the Wolverine diet, yeah, you're going to improve. You will definitely improve. I mean, there's no question about it. And honestly, what his diet is just it's lean gains with a specific kind of macronutrients that you can find online. And but some of it is like a lot of bread. Like one of his meals is like four pieces of toast and jam, and so like he basically does like a 16 off, no eating, and then an 8 hour window of eating. So that's fine. If you want to try that and you want to go from what you have been eating to that, you'll probably see some significant changes. But it isn't just the diet, it is also his workout as well. So if you did the diet and the workout, you would probably see some significant amount of changes. Now you have to understand, is that really something you can do? Because he's an actor, okay? He is paid to go to the gym and spend 3-4 hours at the gym, as he has said, doing deadlifts and doing weights and doing some cardio and sprint training and stuff like that. The chances are that you have work and you have a family, and therefore the chances that you are going to be able to replicate what Hugh Jackman did to get into shape like that is highly unlikely. So even if you did say, hey, look, I go to work all day and, on 4 hours a night at the gym is no problem for me, you pretty much have to be a single guy. I mean, if you had, or a single gal, if you had a family at all, kids and wife and all that stuff, or husband and kids or whatever, you, um, you more than likely would be getting divorce papers because you'd be spending all your time at the gym and none of your time with your family. Uh, so enjoy that perfect body that you have, but the chances are that you're going to be able to replicate what Hugh Jackman did is pretty nil, unless you're just a single dude and you have all the time in the world to be able to spend at the gym. So that's the important part, is people kind of just look at the diet and they don't really look at the exercise, because some of his food is like four pieces of toast with jam on it, and it's like, okay. If you just did it, you might see some improvement, but you might not. I'll be honest with you. There are some people who don't cut their carbs back good enough to even get away with a 16/8, and then eating something like that on their 16/8. There are people who don't uh, who are that out of shape, that's not going to do them much good at all. So you just kind of have to be careful with where you are. The second thing is also, I mean, also you have to think about where you are currently. Okay. If you followed, even if you followed it sort of, let's say you had the diet down and you just were able to spend an hour at the gym, 3 to 4 days a week, you would probably get some really good results with that. But you have to understand too where Hugh Jackman was at and where he got to. He was not somebody who was 100 pounds overweight, 50 pounds overweight, or 150 pounds overweight. Okay, he wasn't overweight at all. If you look at him in the first X-Men, he's certainly not as ripped as he was, but he's not, I mean, you would not characterize him as somebody who needs to lose like this enormous amount of body fat. I would look at him and say, well, even in the first one, boy, if I could just get down to where he was in the first one, that would be freaking awesome. Most of us are in that position. We're looking at, so he went from basically being a basically in shape guy to where he is now in the Wolverine franchise. So you have to take that in consideration too. If you were able to replicate his diet and his exercise to the T, you still would not look like Hugh Jackman at the end of a 6-week cycle or a 3-month cycle. Because quite honestly, if you have a significant amount of weight to lose, which most people listening to this program probably do. I mean, I know I did. So yeah, if you have like 50 pounds or more to lose, you're probably not going to get the results. But that doesn't mean don't try it. I'm not trying to dissuade you. If you like it and you can even moderately duplicate the exercise and do the diet, you will probably get some fantastic results. But I just don't want people thinking that I'm going to do what Hugh Jackman did and I'm going to have the body of Hugh Jackman. You're not. First of all, it depends on your body type, as I've talked about in the past. And next thing is it also depends upon what, what your shape is to begin with. And depends on if you're male or female, if you're older or younger. All these things play a factor into how long you've been overweight. All these things play a factor um, into your weight loss. So, should you do the Wolverine diet? Oh, I think so, absolutely. You should do the Wolverine diet if you can replicate it. But I just don't want people to have this unrealistic, especially guys, to have this unrealistic expectation that they're going to get the results that he did, because you probably won't, unless you're an already in shape dude and you're looking to bulk up, and you have the mesomorph body type and you're relatively healthy to begin with. Go for it. You'll probably get those same results. But if you're not, if you're anything like me, you'll get good results, but you won't get those exact results. But you should do any diet that you'll stick with, and that's rule number one. Okay, so when you're looking to go into choosing your diet, like what diet is right for you, you need to choose a diet that you will stick with. And so I normally lay out a few different diets for my clients. And I will say that the first diet is just the straight out low carb diet. Now, they all follow the same idea that the reason why you are overweight has to do with hormonal dysregulation and not a matter of calories in, calories out. So, all these diets that I'm going to mention right now are diets that are based upon hormonal regulations uh, rather than um, um, rather than calories in, calories out. So, why do I give people different options? It really depends to me on how disciplined they are and how much they're going to be able to stay away from carbohydrates, and knowing also that your diet will change over time, because all diets work on the front end, and then they stop working. That's just the nature of them. Your body gets used to certain diets, and then if they're still coming to me, I will switch them over to another type of diet, which then they will begin to lose weight again. And I know this because I've done this with other people, and I've done this with myself, where I switch between diets, and some of it was just trial and error. It was just a matter of, oh, I like that, I'll try that. I stop losing weight on this. I'll start losing weight on that. So let's break this down. So if you were a client, I would basically give you a couple of different options. Okay, I would give you like maybe three options, 3 or 4 options, maybe. And it would really just depend upon how disciplined you are and how much you are addicted to carbohydrates, and how much you're addicted to junk food, and how long you can stay away from junk food. First off, I don't have this belief that you can do any diet that's going to tell you to stay away from your favorite food, no matter how bad it is, for forever. Okay, that's just nonsense. That is just absolute nonsense. So I always figure in a high carb day or a high carb meal to the best of my abilities with my clients, or a time where they can eat that forbidden food or whatever. Um, So to say that somebody is going to go say paleo for the rest of their life without ever messing up and having a piece of birthday cake is, in my experience, unrealistic. Okay. But that doesn't mean they can't get there. That doesn't mean that over time they can't make that decision and become like a Mark Sisson or a Dave Asprey or somebody like that. But at the beginning, you're taking somebody who's highly addicted to uh, high carbohydrate foods and who is highly addicted to um, sugar and junk food and Cheetos and things like that. I've got to be realistic with them and talk a little bit about, try to get them, with the best of my NLP abilities, to get them motivated to choose a better diet and to be disciplined on that diet. So here are kind of like the basic ones that I let them choose up front, and then it changes on the back end. Really, we just switch. And that is number one, kind of like more of just an Atkins-based diet, an Atkins-based approach diet, or a protein powder-based approach diet. The second one that I like to get people to do or to try is the Wild Diet by Abel James, and then the third one that I like to get is the Warrior Diet, depending on how strong they are, that they can resist eating during the day. Okay, so why do I choose these ones? Now, the Atkins, I'm going to give a little bit of a caveat because it's also kind of like what's called the carb night solution diet. Okay, but I had 2 weeks rather than 10 days because I'd really like to see people go a full 2 weeks on a really super low carbohydrate diet before they can switch over to before they have their big carb blowout. Okay, but basically it's like carb night, except for it's 2 weeks rather than 10 days. So those are like the three diets I like to start people on, and the reason why is it's different for each one. Okay, so if somebody's really disciplined and they can totally make their 2 weeks on a low carbohydrate diet, we're talking like under 50 grams of carbohydrates a day, normally under 25 to 35 grams of carbohydrates a day. And then I don't let them worry too much about their quality of food. Okay, their quality of food. Now, this is the diet that kind of probably changes the most over like over time. So I don't really focus on the quality of food when a person chooses that diet. Now, the reason why I don't focus on the quality of food is I can't give somebody at the very beginning every problem that they're doing and every problem that they have and every problem that they're supposed to avoid. It would just be overwhelming. Okay, please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that I'm not concerned about the quality of food. I am concerned about the quality of food. I believe that weight loss really comes down to two things. It comes down to the quality of the food and how many carbohydrates you're getting into your body, and the quality of those carbohydrates. So I really do believe in the quality of the food as well as the carbohydrate count. But I got to start somewhere with somebody, okay? So normally what I'll do is I'll start them on hey, keep your carbs under 50, normally under 25, if you can, 25 to 35 carbohydrates a day for 2 weeks, no fruit. Okay, that's another thing I do. You can't get your carbohydrates from fruit at all, even if you're well under that. I take fruit out of the diet completely. So it's even modified from there, because what I don't want anything happening is I don't want anything sweet touching their tongue at all. And quite honestly, if you've ever done that where you've gone with anything, not any fruit at all throughout the week, even things like a carrot starts to taste really super sweet. And they are a little bit sweet, but you actually start to like really notice the sweetness in carrots and the sweetness in stuff like that. So carrots and obviously that would count towards their carbohydrate count, but they can have it. And if they want to open up a can of, a bag of lunch meat to fill themselves up, that's fine. I don't count calories at all. You eat till you're satisfied. And you can even overeat a little bit if you like want to go hog wild on a steak because you've been told your whole life you can't have steak and fat. So go hog wild for a little bit, but 2 weeks under 50 grams of carbohydrates, no fruit, and then you can have a cheat day, or really it's an afternoon. It's really like 2 meals, and anything within the 6 to 8 hour window you can have, and as long as you go back on it the next day. So that's the first diet, and that one to me is a little bit harder because you really have to dial down those carbohydrates. I mean, we're talking not even quote unquote good carbohydrates, not rice, not beans, not anything. Well, they could have that, but you better not exceed that 35 grams of carbohydrates. Then you have your cheat day. After you have your cheat day or your cheat afternoon, where there's no forbidden foods, you do that on a weekly cycle. So you drop those carbs down. You can kind of raise them after that if people want to. They can raise them to like around 50, maybe 75, and that's kind of where things get a little bit where you kind of have to adjust things. But for the most part, like, you just drop those carbs down and you kind of do the induction phase of the Atkins over and over again, until with this. But then as it develops later on, and depending upon your workout, I might have them add in a little bit of extra carbs, but more of like the good carbs, like sweet potatoes or something like that. And it kind of just depends on what they're going and what they're doing. So again, for example, later in that diet, I might have them think about the quality of their food. At the very beginning, first 2 weeks, no. All right. So second diet uh, I like to recommend is the wild diet. Okay. And the wild diet isn't as low on carbs. It's more focused on the quality of the food. And you get a cheat meal once a week. Okay. So so then again, if you're having a little bit more carbs during your week, and you're more focused on the quality of your food, then you might not be jonesing for a whole day. You might be able to get away with just having one meal where nothing's off limits. And then even that changes over time. That kind of, so you might, at the very beginning, of that cheat meal, you might, have cake and ice cream and pizza. Nothing's off limits on that meal, as Abel James has said. But over time, you might go, you know what? I want a gluten-free pizza, and let's make this homemade, and let's use organic cheese and organic. It's still going to be high carb, but let's try to make this an organic cheat meal as much as possible. And so that does change over time, but that's one, because you still get that one kick where you can still have anything you want once a week. But that one focuses more on the quality of food, and the carbohydrate count is actually more tolerable. So somebody can actually have, chilled white rice or a sweet potato from time to time, something like that. So it's a little bit more liberal with the carbs, but what you do have to focus on is, am I getting it organic? Am I getting the grass-fed beef? Am I getting that? And you get great results with that diet. The bulletproof diet's kind of like that as well. Um, the bulletproof diet is like that, except for the bulletproof diet's just a tad more strict, when it comes to things like dairy and things like that. But the bulletproof diet and the wild diet are kind of like cousins. They're kind of like siblings. So if somebody likes the bulletproof diet instead, I don't mind them trying that as well. But on that one, you're low carb kind of more incidentally. I mean, there is still like a carb count in the book and stuff, but it's more like you're low carb incidentally. I mean, obviously, if you stop eating donuts in the morning and you start eating eggs in the morning, you're cutting your carbohydrates down. But it's not because you're necessarily focusing on not eating donuts. You're focusing on, am I eating real food? Okay, so it gets low carb, but it's low carb kind of incidentally and not necessarily consciously. You're just saying, well, if I don't eat processed food, well, of course I'm not going to eat. If I eat a potato and not a bag of chips, well, then of course my carb count is going to be significantly low, but it's still higher than the Atkins or a protein power or something like that. So that focuses on the quality of your food. And then finally, there is the warrior diet, which out of a lot of the intermittent fasting diets, it's probably one of my favorite. Although I am having, some good success with the 2 and 5. But you can read all about that in my book, Fasting to Break Your Plateau, and a basic guide to intermittent fasting, which I will link in the show notes. So I will link it in the show notes. Um, but that diet basically is a 20-hour fast, and even on that diet you can still have like some lean meats and stuff, but I really recommend people don't eat during that time, during that 20-hour fast. If they can make it 20 hours and then a 4-hour eating window, and in that 4-hour eating window you have to have a salad, but you can have like a dessert or a higher carb meal, or it's not optimal, but you can have it. You don't have to wait the whole week or whatever. It's just like some people is just like, okay, look, I know you're highly addicted to pizza, let's say, you just love pizza or burgers and fries or whatever. Let's just do this. Let's go a whole day. Let's go 20 hours without eating. We're going to break the fast at 20 hours. You're going to have a big old salad. That's the first thing you're going to do. And then after that, you can go ahead and have those burgers and fries. And so it's not exactly like the warrior diet, but people do. But then you got to go 20 hours again, and you can only eat within that 4-hour window. And basically you're done eating after 4 hours. So it is a higher carb per day and a higher junk food per day, but because they're dropping down, uh, and then quite honestly, what happens is, and this is what happened with me, is I punctuated those high carb meals by low carb meals. So not every high carb meal not every meal was a high carb meal. And then the other thing that happened is I wasn't even that hungry as much. Wasn't as hungry for the junk food as much as you might think. I mean, I would have like one big meal, and some of it would be higher carb, and some of it, but a lot of it wouldn't. I'd have my big salad, but then I might have like a steak, and maybe some potatoes and maybe some ice cream afterwards or something like that. And I got great results with that diet. So I try to get them to do that. Those are like the 3 diets that I recommend. And it really has to do with lifestyle. It has to do with family. It has to do with your work, with whatever. So like, for example, obviously on the warrior diet, you're not eating breakfast. Okay, but if you're somebody who's just like, I can't handle not having breakfast, then let's put you on an Atkins type diet, so that in the morning you can have food. And if you're one of these people that have to have food in the morning, well, you can't do both diets. You can't eat low carb all day, then have a big high carb meal at night. That's not going to work. If you do the wild diet, then it's going to be a little between the two. You don't have to have breakfast if you're not hungry, but you can certainly, if you get to, mid-morning or you get to mid-afternoon and you're feeling hungry, you just make the best choices. So it really depends on what the person can be realistic with. And also the other one is, the other thing is family. So as many of you know, that the intermittent fasting was really good for me, because my family didn't always eat low carb meals. Now, again, every diet kind of runs its course. You'll kind of have to get to a point where you have to change, and that's normally what I make people do, is change through these different diets to get maximum results, because that's kind of what I did. as I just changed through diet. So carb cycling wasn't working, where I was having like one big cheat meal a week. And then so I went to intermittent fasting, where I could have a little bit of carbs every night, but I would just basically not eat during the day. And then, okay, that's not working. Well, let's not really worry about my carb count. Let's more worry about the quality of food. Well, then that started working. So you'll find that these things work through different phases of your life. And I think that's the best way to look at it. But quite honestly, what diet really fits your life? Can you truly make it a whole day and not eat and only eat for 4 hours, or only have a 4 hour window? You're not eating the whole 4 hours. Yes, you have a 4 hour window to eat. Can you really do that? Um, if you're somebody that's like, afternoon comes around and you have to eat, well, then maybe you should try the wild diet, because that's actually more functional for you. Or if you're somebody who's like, well, I don't really want to restrict myself, when and my whole family's on board and we don't mind these low carb planning, these low carb meals, maybe Atkins is going to be best for you, or an Atkins style diet is going to be best for you. It really just depends, but the common elements are the same. And that is we're dealing with hormones and not calories. Okay, you're dealing with hormones. You have to get your hormones under control, and that's what each of these diets do, is they get your hormones under control. All right, so that's it for today. Hey, thanks everybody for joining me on A Mind for Fitness. If you like what you heard, please share this on your favorite social media, and go to the YouTube channel at A Mind for Fitness, subscribe. Facebook / Mind for Fitness. Twitter, well, I'm on Twitter, but I don't really do a whole lot on Twitter. I'm kind of becoming more disillusioned with Twitter. This just seems to be more fake accounts on Twitter than I can shake a stick at. And so I really don't post a lot on Twitter. Every once in a while I'll post. But on Facebook, I kind of like, on Facebook, I really like, if I'm watching a video on weight loss and I feel like it's got something good to say, I'll post it on Facebook. So Facebook is really where you can find me, and the YouTube channel. So thank you very much for joining me today, and until we meet again, keep your mind on fitness.